I'm Melanie Risdon with the Western Standard. Thanks for joining me. Women in leadership and the lack thereof is on topic today. Axis Connects brings the first annual Women's Leadership Forum to Calgary on November 9th, and we're connecting with one of the forum speakers today, Jackie Rafter, founder and president of Higher Landing, Inc. Hello, Jackie. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's first chat a little bit about your company and why it is that you're involved with this first annual Women's Forum.
So Higher Landing is a career transformation company. We're the first in Canada to be doing what we're doing. We help mainly professionals and job seekers transition, transform their careers, pivot to new ones, and not just land any kind of job, but land higher. So the issue in Alberta has really been, I guess the need for our services has really skyrocketed, given the number of people that are now having to pivot their careers, not necessarily by choice, but more because they have to. Just with the evolution of the job market, the accelerated pace of change, and a lot of people having to do things that they never otherwise would have even considered or thought it was possible because they didn't have the appropriate training.
Right. Now, looking at some statistics that were included on the forum website, 45% of employees at Canada's largest firms are women. However, female representation diminishes considerably up the leadership ladder. So 28% of Alberta tech startups are founded by women, yet only 6% of Alberta's established businesses are run by women. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. But when it comes to female professionals specifically, I think what I've noticed is that a lot of them struggle with self-limiting beliefs, self-worth, imposter syndrome, and a lack of confidence. And then the other big part of it is that they really don't know how to influence within the organization, sort of without authority, which is one of the things that I'm going to be speaking about. So it's really a multifaceted solution, I think, that needs to be taken in order to overcome that barrier, for sure.
Yeah, and I would assume that even just genetically how women are typically taken out of the work environment for periods of time if they do have an interest in having families and children. That's got to be an impacting factor as well, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely, Melanie. And a lot of women really struggle with re-entering the workforce and suffer prospects for advancement because of that. They suffer also post-maternity experiences. So there are a lot of barriers that women face that men do not. And those are very real challenges, I think, that require unique solutions.
Absolutely. And I do want to dive into your topic and what you plan to be speaking to at the conference. Looks very interesting. First of all, though, why do you think it's important to have women in leadership positions?
Well, if you look at the just the labor force itself, almost half of the labor force is comprised of women, and women provide very diverse perspectives that just because of their life experiences that men simply they can't compete with. So it's really important that we have their voice at the table, because they represent such a significant demographic of the workforce. The other challenge I just wanted to mention too was that within Alberta there is a real push to move and diversify our workforce into the Alberta Recovery Plan industry. So we're looking at information technology, agriculture, aviation, aerospace. There's a whole list of them. And the additional challenge that women face with entering those specific sectors and diversifying their careers in those industries where they might have no previous experience is the fact that the majority of those industries are male dominated. So there's another barrier, and we really need to have their voice at the table. Gender inequities are especially pronounced in the energy sector, and I mean, it's common knowledge that there's an industry-wide culture that really promotes gender bias in favor of men. So we really have got to provide them with unique supports, flexible hours, childcare support. And so there's a lot of way that many stakeholders, I think, can get involved with addressing some of these barriers.
Now, I like in some of the information around what you're presenting to women, the sort of mid-career influence without authority, the idea to future-proof your career. What does that look like to you?
Well, it's important that all women, everybody, period, but especially women, equip themselves with the ability to influence all levels of an organization. And that is essential to future-proof, everybody's career in 2022 and beyond, regardless of what job title they hold, what kind of work experience they have, or what position they currently yield within the organization. So it's really important that we provide them with the critical, not just hard skills, but more soft skills that are going to be required, not just to address those types of issues, but also that are required probably to manage our careers for the next 100 years of work. We're in a completely different playing field right now, where we've hit this paradigm shift in the workforce, and that has been fueled by the pace of change, which is only going to accelerate. So people really need to learn strategies to have impactful and meaningful conversations that truly matter to all stakeholders within the organization. And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. They're just not really taught those things.
So give me some of the ideas behind soft skills that you're talking about. Give me some examples.
So hard skills are traditionally what people have used to get their next job or get a promotion. And because of the shelf life of hard skills diminishing so quickly due to this accelerated pace of change that we're facing in the economy, the shelf life of those hard skills has shrunk. I was just reading some research recently, from about 30 years in Alberta to less than 6. So what that means is that anything that you would have gone to school to learn, say from a technical perspective, has got about a 6-year shelf life maximum.
Right.
I think it's probably closer to 3 or 4. So what is replacing that? We can't be going to school every few months just to continuously upskill. It's practically, from practical perspective, it's near impossible. But what is replacing that are soft skills. So I always tell our clients, that we might get our foot in the door for our next opportunity or promotion because of our hard skills, but it's our soft skills that are really going to get us noticed and hired. So soft skills are part of our personality that have always been with us. A job can be ripped away from us in a second, but your soft skills stay with you for life. And so whether that's, a great sense of humor, your ability to nurture someone, your ability to make somebody feel better about themselves. These are really underrated skills that are going to empathy and emotional intelligence are probably two of the most important soft skills for the next 100 years of work. So unless we are learning how to build those skills, we're going to be really putting ourselves and our careers and our futures at risk.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because I would agree with you. Those are very critical skills. And I think even going as far back in our education as elementary, junior high, high school, I feel like those things are really sort of glossed over. I know in my education growing up, I really didn't learn those skills to any kind of extent through education channels in high school. And you would think that at this stage, those interpersonal skills would be so much more, highlighted and curriculum built around it.
For sure. And I think the biggest challenge, Melanie, that people have is trying to interpret or translate what they've done in school, what their last job titles were, what roles they've held into, okay, well, how will that provide value to somebody else? If suddenly my job became redundant tomorrow morning, that doesn't mean to say you're going to become redundant, but what else would you do? How else would you apply that? And that's where the self-discovery, the really digging deep work comes into play with respect to trying to understand, okay, well, what are my soft skills? And it's just because the reason that it's so hard is because it's a new way of having to think about ourselves and our careers, because traditionally we've just had to throw our hard skills on a resume along with our job titles, and then put the resume out there, distribute our resume, and then boom, the next thing we would be hired. Now that's completely shifted. And so we are now being paid not just for our hard skills, but of our soft and of the value that we're going to provide to somebody, regardless of what industry that is.
Looking at the Leadership Forum schedule, it looks like there's some incredible speakers, some incredible workshops. Yours is an interactive workshop. So what kind of skills, or what are you hoping the outcomes will be for people who attend and hear what you have to share?
Well, I'm going to be sharing some powerful and very practical strategies that will show people participants how to have impactful and meaningful conversations that truly matter to everyone in the organization. And so we're going to be doing some exercises. There will be some group work that will be included as well. But a successful outcome will be that women will have an ability to very confidently have a conversation and or provide influence, whether that's in person or in a different way, with somebody that really matters to them, that is going to demonstrate their value and get them noticed at different levels of the organization, potentially even promoted, who knows?
Right. Now, a little off the beaten track, because this is a women's forum, because, this is really the goal to empower and encourage women. All of the controversy lately as of the definition of a woman, does anyone fear the pushback for this strong focus and targeting on empowering women in this climate?
Well, it's not really empowering women, it's empowering people. It's just that women have been a very sort of visible or an invisible group where there's been a lot more lobbying to get them that essential visibility. And that's because of those gender equalities being so pronounced in certain sectors, especially within the Alberta workforce. So we have no choice, but I mean, if you just look at the stats, there are like a lot of the Alberta Recovery Plan industries, including energy, are male dominated. And is that really what success looks like to the province? I don't think so.
Well, and speaking of women in general, but then you're right, as soon as you move into some of the statistics here, women of color hold only 6.2% of women-held board, executive, senior management positions. Black women, Indigenous women, LGBTQ women, and women with disabilities hold less than 1% of women-held senior leadership and pipeline positions. So, I mean, when you start getting into even more marginalized areas for women, it just drops considerably.
Well, and I think that there's a real perception problem that's happening. There's a lot of, traditional mindsets that just assume women can only do certain types of roles. And that has got to be corrected. And that is why women have to become comfortable in advocating for themselves. So the other side of this, so it's not just about other people's perception, but more importantly, it's about our perception of ourselves. And so many of us feel that, we feed our minds with, oh, I can't do that. Oh, they'll never hire me. So there's a lot of negative self-talk. And this, like I said, this feeling of imposter syndrome that happens. And only we can fix that. And that's also something that I'm going to be speaking about at this talk. So it's not only educating others on our value, but it's also getting out of our own ways, so that we can unleash our confidence to feel good enough about ourselves to be able to be those advocates. So if nobody else is going to advocate for us, we have to be able to do it ourselves. And that does not mean pushing ourselves into, onto other people by any stretch. It's about being smart, strategic, and proactive in terms of how we do that.
Okay. And then when it comes to the idea behind getting a suitable candidate versus the best candidate versus, making sure that we're meeting some sort of a quota, what are your thoughts around that when it comes to women?
I think that's very, very dated. And rather than employers look at hiring for those reasons, we should all be looking to hire on the basis of value. So how will my company or my life or my organization be different if I hire you? And that is where the onus now, it never used to be, is far more on the candidate side, being able to explain what their value is going to be to somebody. And like I said, that's just out of the comfort zone of so many people because they've never had to do it before. So this is a new way of thinking about yourselves and managing your career in general. What's in it for somebody else? And if you're able to provide solutions to pain points, for instance, that somebody else is hiring or is experiencing, does it really matter what gender or race you are? No.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, Alberta has seen female premiers in the past, first being Alison Redford in 2011, Rachel Notley in 2015. Now we have Danielle Smith. So when it comes to this level of leadership, what do you see the strengths that women bring to the table when, say, running a province?
I would say visibility is, and really shining the spotlight on some of these underrepresented groups. And it's not that, it's a men are better than women or vice versa. I just think that, we come from a very unique place, that perspective that others don't. So we see things differently. And I think it's that perspective that really needs to be exposed to the masses to be able to better understand and open our minds to the value that, say, a professional woman can provide to any organization, regardless of her work history, regardless of her credentials or her profession. Because that's the reality. Going forward, we are all going to be changing careers. You're going to be changing your career. Whether we want to or not, it might not happen right away, but we are all going to have multiple careers in our lifetime, and that is the reality of the new future of work.
Certainly, and gone are the days where you are, 35 years in the same career, right?
No.
Interesting. How many careers have you had? How many careers have you had at this stage?
Too many to count. Over a dozen.
It well rounds you, right? I think it contributes to that for sure.
Well, and it's about getting out of outdated thinking and, and looking at, well, what is possible for you rather than what is not. And so many people get stuck in, well, I've done the same thing the same way in the same job for so many decades. Okay, well, it's too late to change. It is never too late to change. So what if you're 50 some years old, you're the sole provider of your family, and suddenly your job becomes permanently redundant and there's no need for what you did for the past 3 decades? Does that mean that you're just going to pack up and go on EI for the rest of your days or years? No, you have to be able to transition, identify what those transferable skills are, and more importantly, understand how you can add value to somebody's life or someone's company. What are the pain points you can solve? You take something like a soft skill, like relationship building, for instance, whether you're a geologist or, an accountant, if you have good relationship building skills, those are very transferable to any industry for that matter. And so it's really getting out of this very narrow-minded view of what we should be doing next, and really looking at the possibilities and really going with the times. And I think that's something that our new premier can do too, is really educate our population on where the opportunities are, what is possible for Alberta. I mean, this is a really exciting time to be in the workforce. And learnability too. That's huge. And, most of us do have an ability to learn. So my advice to people is, if they do have a track record of learning things really quickly, make sure that others know that. That's a great way for them to advocate for themselves, for a new job, or for even a promotion, despite the fact that they might not have previous experience in that.
Well, and I agree with you. There is ample opportunity, specifically in Alberta right now. There is all sorts of growth in many sectors right now that we're witnessing, as we recover and we come out of the pandemic, and there are new opportunities coming all the time. And so really this leadership forum, this Women's Leadership Forum, would be great for really any woman who's looking to either enhance or further, or, even say a mom who sending the kids off to school now and is looking for opportunities, right?
Absolutely. This is probably one of the most exciting times in history to have a new role created for you, whether you are working or not. And we just need to be armed with the tools to be able to do that. And that's one of the things I think this conference is going to address.
Mm-hmm. That's Access Connects, and that is bringing the first annual Women's Leadership Forum here in Calgary. That's happening on November 9th, and it's a full day of fantastic looking speakers, all sorts of different resources and tools, and sounds like a lot of opportunity for women to sort of connect and find connections with business leaders.
Absolutely. And understand the importance of connecting their heads to their hearts. That's absolutely key to future-proofing your career going forward.
Tell me what you mean by that. Like, give me like what's the importance of that?
So, when I talk about, your head, it's a matter of thinking, okay, well, this is, what I can do. I've done all these things the same way all my life and held these jobs. But when you connect to your heart, and really ask yourself questions such as, well, what is it that makes your heart sing? What is it that gets you excited to jump out of bed in the morning? What is it that you do when you lose track of time? It's not that that's necessarily what you're going to be doing for a living, whether it's gardening or putting puzzles together or playing with your kids, but it's understanding the why behind it, because it's that why that is your value. And that is something that people will never, like I said, a job can be ripped away from you in a second. Knowing your value stays with you for life, and that is what you should be paid for, not some job title that has a shelf life of 3 to 6 years. But what is it that you can be known as the go-to person for within your organization, regardless of what time it is in history. And it's about moving into here and being really honest and authentic with yourself with respect to asking yourself, like, what is it that really gets me excited to jump out of bed in the morning? Gee, nobody ever asked me that. And then once again, going back to the why. We had a person in our program who said that they loved gardening, and it had nothing to do with gardening. But when I asked them, I said, okay, what is it that you like about gardening? Why is it important? Why do you like it? And it was because, they like to nurture things. Nurturing was important to them. And I said, okay, well, can you think of a time in your last job where you might have nurtured something and where things were turned out to be in a real win-win situation? And this person started to cry because they thought that they had no value whatsoever. And, they said to me, Jackie, when I look back at my life and my career, it's like everybody who's ever worked for me has gone on to do greater things than I have. And it's because, I guess I was just really good at nurturing them. But unless your employer knows that about you, that you've got an ability to build a team from good to great, say in this particular case, you're going to be overlooked for jobs and for promotions. You might even lose your job. And this is what I see time and time again in Alberta, because people don't know their real value. And it's because they've been living up here, not here. This is the past. This is the future.
Very good. I think it sounds like you have all sorts of fantastic messaging for women in your workshop, but I'm sure throughout the day, women will feel very sort of empowered throughout this leadership forum. So again, this is Jackie Rafter, founder and president of Higher Landing Incorporated, and Jackie will be hosting a workshop at the Women's Leadership Forum, which is coming up in Calgary here on November 9th. Thanks so much for sharing with us today, and we just look forward to what's ahead, and especially for the opportunities that can be presented for women working in this province moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Melanie.
Here's an update on commodity prices around Lethbridge for today. Cash barley is trading at $4.53, feed wheat is lower at $4.70, and corn remains at $4.75 per metric ton. In the milling wheat markets, December Minneapolis futures are lower 3 1/4 cents at $9.57, with local hard red spring bid for November-December movement at $12 per bushel. Moving on to canola, futures are lower $16.80 at $909.60 per ton, with delivered values for December movement at $20.40 per bushel. In the pulse markets, nearby red lentil prices are trading at 34 cents per pound, and yellow peas at $13 per bushel. And in the cattle markets, December live cattle slipped 12.5 cents at 152.93 per hundredweight. For more information on pricing or farm options, give me a call at 403-394-1711. I'm Matt Busicum at Marketplace Commodities. Accurate, real-time marketing information and pricing options.
Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. To become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny. You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited access